Tonight in 9 News, Novak wins. The world number one free-to-play in the Australian Open as a judge overturns the government's ruling. No more dancing, new restrictions to stem the Omicron tidal wave. Big changes to isolation rules to ensure Melbourne doesn't run out of food. Nervous families front up to protect kids from COVID as supply falls short for GPs. The actor and comedian labelled America's Dad, Bob Saget, found dead in Florida. And a low-key return to training as COVID rips through the AFL.
This is Melbourne's 9 News with Peter Hitchener.
Good evening. Novak Djokovic is free to play in the Australian Open after a stunning victory in the federal court. A judge found the decision to cancel the world number one's visa was unreasonable, ordering his immediate release from detention. Lana Murphy begins our coverage.
He secured 20 Grand Slams and ruled centre court, but Novak Djokovic's win in the federal circuit court could be his best.
We are absolutely, oh my God.
I feel amazing because he did everything by the books.
After 4 days in immigration detention and a 9-hour hearing, at 5:15 this afternoon, the world number one was declared free to enter Australia. The judge quashing the cancellation of the unvaccinated player's visa hours after asking, what more could this man have done? The 9-time Australian Open champion driven to a secret location after lunch, after technology broke down. From 10 a.m, Serbian fans lined Melbourne's legal precinct as Novak Djokovic's high-powered lawyers argued that when he flew in from Dubai late on Wednesday, the unvaccinated tennis star had ticked every box. He'd received a travel declaration from the federal government, was granted a medical exemption by Tennis Australia and provided this to Border Force officials. But when he landed in Melbourne, the 34-year-old was told a previous infection with COVID did not make him exempt from vaccination. A transcript of Djokovic's interview reveals he asked officers if it could be postponed until 8:30 a.m. the next day, when his agent and Tennis Australia could supply further information. But a Border Force officer said no, that's not on, and that his shift was about to end. Djokovic's visa was cancelled at 7:29 a.m.
Only one level of government determines that visa, and it's not the Victorian government.
The federal government's advice to Tennis Australia that was set out very clearly in November. As I read the extract from this very podium, it could not been more clear.
The world number one slammed the decision as seriously illogical. That criticism aimed at the court too, after its live stream of the hotly anticipated hearing crashed.
Nobody in Serbia sleeps tonight because we are all waiting to see if Novak is going to defend the title in Melbourne, and we go for Novak.
In Belgrade, cafes stayed open with supporters glued to every type of screen. But it was one of the tens of thousands of spectators logging on from around the world who interrupted evidence from Djokovic's lawyer. At one point, a user even broadcast adult content. The unforced errors prompting the judge to briefly release Djokovic from detention so he could view an uninterrupted stream of the proceedings. His temporary home, again a hub of police activity.
Free the refugees!
Free the refugees!
5 people were arrested before dawn. The group of pro-refugee activists scaling the building, demanding attention for the 32 asylum seekers imprisoned. Detaining one of the world's best sportsmen and fighting to keep him out has cost the country more than $500,000, and still no one has taken the blame. And while it may seem Djokovic has clawed his way back from match point, there's no guarantee he'll make it to the next round. Lana Murphy, 9 News.
Adam Hegarty is outside Djokovic's lawyer's office. Now, Adam, the challenge has been successful, but it's not over yet.
It's not at all, Pete. Pure elation, as you saw there from Novak fans outside the federal court. But for Novak's lawyers here, still a bit of work to do, and that was a threat made in court, in open court. It's sounding like the federal government may try to cancel Novak's visa a second time. I've got a transcript here from the federal government's lawyer, Christopher Tran, read in court. I'll read a bit for you. It says, I'm instructed that the Minister for Immigration, so not the minister in this proceeding, will consider whether to exercise a personal power of cancellation. Those are my instructions to inform the court, Pete. To translate that, it's my understanding, speaking to people in the federal government, that they believe that the judge's decision today was based on procedural law, looking at specifically what Border Force did, but they still believe that Novak Djokovic didn't present the relevant medical documents to back up his claim.
OK, thank you, Adam Hegarty, for that report. Now to Europe correspondent Brett McLeod, who's outside the family restaurant in Belgrade. Brett, what's been their reaction?
Still waiting to hear, Pete. There's certainly a bit of a white Christmas feel today, just a few days after the Orthodox Christmas, and the Djokovic's family's Christmas wishes have been answered, and they were quite confident about this. Yesterday they had their rally, which they were quite sure would be their last rally in the support of their son. They were certain that he would win in the court today, as he has done. They're quite confident he'll go on to win the Australian Open. And they said they had a message for the government, which is to stay out of their son's life and let him play. I spoke to them briefly afterwards. And we're waiting to hear from the Djokovic's. They said that they will speak around midday today, and certainly I'm sure they've got a lot they want to get off their chest after this saga involving their son, Pete. OK, thank you for that report, Brett McLeod in Belgrade. Dance floors will be banned under a raft of changes announced today in response to the Omicron wave and a jump in hospitalisations. They include mandating a third dose of the vaccine for critical industries. Mimi Becker with the details.
Carefree from COVID and dancing the night away. Indoor scenes like this will be banned from 11:59 on Wednesday night under new restrictions. With more than 160,000 Victorians fighting the virus, the changes are bad news for some businesses.
You can get this thing anywhere at the moment. So for them to just close dance floors for businesses like ours, it's a big kick in the guts.
But the state's health system is under pressure and bracing for the worst.
The staff are really struggling with nurses being asked to work extra shifts repeatedly, people being pulled back from holidays.
Hospitalisations are at their highest since the Delta wave in October last year. Right now, 818 people are being treated in hospital, 118 patients are in ICU, while 28 require a ventilator to breathe.
This virus is milder than Delta, just with the sheer scale of transmission that we're seeing. Our hospital pressure is going to continue to increase to levels that we've not seen throughout this entire pandemic.
Of the 34,808 new cases, just over half were a PCR result, while 17,100 were from rapid antigen tests. 2 people sadly died. Experts predicting the peak of Victoria's wave will be in late January, early February.
It's so important that we all do everything we can to drive that curve down as quickly as we can and knock the peak off its spike.
Vaccinations are key, and the third vaccine will be mandated for health, aged care and disability workers, emergency services and corrections staff. Employees in food processing and distribution and quarantine facilities will also need the booster. If they're already eligible, they'll need it by February 12. The government preempting other industries will also be forced to get a booster shot.
We'll have more to say about future vaccination mandates to achieve those same goals in the near future.
To ensure supermarket shelves are stacked and food supplies don't run dry, warehouse and supermarket retail workers will be able to return to work as a close contact within their isolation period only if they're asymptomatic.
Exempted workers will be required to undertake daily rapid antigen tests for 5 days.
The employee has the choice to opt in. We think it's most important that it's up to the employer to provide the rapid antigen tests.
In aged care homes, residents will be allowed up to 5 visitors a day, but they must test negative on a rat. If there aren't any available, only 2 visitors will be allowed. In hospital, visitors must be fully vaxxed, and if not, they'll need to have a negative rat and wear an N95 mask. And when it comes to big events like the Australian Open,
we want to work with those events actively to make sure that they can be continuing, but in a safe and secure way.
Mimi, experts think the true number of cases is actually much higher.
According to the official figures, Pete, 1 in 40 Victorians has COVID, but the acting Chief Health Officer says he believes that number to be more likely 1 in 25, which is truly shocking. But considering COVID is practically everywhere now, people are being encouraged to work from home. And when it comes to hospitality, they're being encouraged to only do seated service. So, as rapid tests become more widely available, Pete, everyone will be encouraged to use them before any social occasions too. Pete?
OK, thank you very much, Mimi. Well, there were smiles, high fives and a few tears as children across Victoria finally received their first doses. But furious GPs have been forced to cancel appointments because their vaccine supply hasn't arrived. Elizabeth Moss explains.
It's as easy as 1, 2, 3.
Well done.
6-year-old Stephanie Vasta among 25,000 children receiving their first dose at a state-run site this week.
Are you excited to get your vaccination?
Yeah. She's got bronchiectasis, so we've been waiting to get it for her so that we know that she's protected and safe.
It was high fives all round at Frankston Community Vaccination Hub, transformed into an enchanted forest, complete with fidget spinners and furry friends.
I think just the level of excitement and relief that we're seeing is really quite palpable.
Thank you for being such brave kids.
From Frankston to pharmacies, the jab now available for 5 to 11-year-olds.
Pretty excited, in fact, because I've been waiting for ages.
And plenty have good reason to roll up their sleeves.
So we could keep playing sport and going back to school and keep our family safe.
Since I'm vaccinated, I'm going to be able to go to France and see my family. You might get a bit tired after getting vaccinated. It will stop you from getting COVID.
So did it hurt?
Just like a little pinch, then just felt like nothing.
While there's plenty of doses for kids at these hubs, elsewhere fridges are empty.
They were supposed to arrive last week. It's now Monday morning. We've had to cancel our vaccine clinics today and likely we'll have to cancel them for the rest of the week.
Baldwin GP Marianne Lancaster frustrated to say the least.
We're sitting here waiting to vaccinate a population that wants to be vaccinated, and we can't do it.
She's not alone.
We're getting phone calls, have you got them, have you got them, are you getting it? Can we borrow some if you've got some?
But according to the head of the National COVID Vaccine Task Force,
there is enough paediatric doses in the country to offer every 5 to 11-year-old a first dose before they commence school this year.
It is a complete lie. The vaccines aren't here. Come and look at my fridge. Come and look at the day we ordered them. They're not here. Where are they?
For many parents, there is a sense of urgency.
We're only 3 weeks away from school starting, and one dose is better than having no doses at all.
And the statistics speak for themselves.
The proportion of infections amongst 5 to 11-year-olds was in excess of 30% of total infections from sort of late November into early December, and that is now 4%.
The government acknowledging extracurricular and social activities during the school term have contributed to that figure. Nonetheless, there's no plan to push back the start of the school year.
We want them back and learning as safely as possible, as soon as possible.
Lizzie, there are still thousands more appointments available.
That's right, Pete. We've been told today that there are around 40,000 appointments for children available at state-run centres, just like this one here at the Heidelberg Repatriation Hospital. That's one of 36 sites which will be able to administer vaccines to children. So the advice is if your vaccine has been pushed back or cancelled, then try booking online at one of these sites.
Elizabeth Moss. More Australian workers could soon be allowed to skip isolation if they're a COVID close contact under proposals to be considered by National Cabinet. Aviation, education and childcare will be affected by the rule change. Fiona Willan has more.
Swooping in to save supermarkets from crippling shortages in the face of a fast-moving virus.
We have to push through.
States are pushing ahead with plans to scrap COVID isolation rules for food supply workers.
What that involves is asymptomatic, close contacts being able to go to work in those sectors.
The federal government's medical experts say those who produce our food, get it from A to B and onto the shelves no longer have to isolate if they're close contacts.
We're not talking about people who are working on checkouts. Anyone who's customer facing, they are not doing that.
As long as they've tested negative and have no symptoms.
We are not asking people that are sick
to go to work.
So far, every state except WA has adopted at least parts of the plan, but the industry says that they all must be fully on board.
You can't have a truck driver going from one state to another state not being sure of whether to isolate or not.
Warning, if the problem isn't fixed soon, it won't just be supermarket shelves running bare.
We have 2,000 trucks providing food to nursing homes and hospitals, schools, childcare centres.
And it's not just food providers doing it tough. National Cabinet will consider proposals to extend the changes to workers in other critical industries, including childcare, education, medical suppliers and aviation. Airlines were forced to cancel flights due to worker shortages before Christmas, but not everyone believes keeping close contacts on the job is the answer.
Do not abandon close contact isolation rules. You don't beat this virus by recategorising it.
Fiona Willan, 9 News.
Tragedy in Geelong this afternoon with a woman killed when her car and a truck collided. The victim died at the scene on Bacchus Marsh Road just after 2 o'clock, while a young child was airlifted to hospital with serious injuries. Charges are yet to be laid. Carlton legend Alex Jesaulenko is preparing for the fight of a lifetime after he was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. His daughter Kate says he's in strong spirits, and the family has contacted Parkinson's Victoria to help raise funds for the incurable illness. Jesaulenko has a combined 290 games either played or coached for the Blues, and is best remembered for his legendary mark in the 1970 Grand Final. Clint Stanaway's along next with a look ahead to sport.
Thanks so much, Pete. Welcome back too. Thank you. Tonight in sport, Barty makes a detour in her bid for Australian Open glory, while there's been a bit of a change of plans for Nick too. Plus, COVID chaos across the AFL, the Bombers, one of the worst affected clubs.
I've managed to duck and weave a couple at the moment and try not to get it, but we're still, the lay of the land at the moment.
In cricket, the Warners packed their bags for Tassie amid a selection quandary. Cam shatters a golf record and pockets a stack of cash. A golden boy of basketball gets a welcome home bash he'll never forget, and some horrid news, you could say, for two AFLW superstars. We'll have the latest live on that story, Pete.
OK, thank you, Clint Stanaway. A reckless driver is wanted for ramming a police van in Melbourne's west, narrowly missing an officer. Nicole leads a cavalcade of Aussie stars to win big at a controversial Golden Globes, and an exclusive first look at the big bird joining Victoria's firefighting fleet. A driver has dramatically reversed into a patrol car after being pulled over in the city's west. The Commodore narrowly missed an officer during the crash in Altona North at the start of the month.
Just their willingness to engage in this sort of behaviour, putting my members at risk, but also members of the public. Quite scary. It could have been a lot more serious than what it was.
Police believe the motorist and two passengers who are still at large also assaulted someone with a hockey stick on the Princes Freeway overpass before abandoning the vehicle. An electric heater has sparked a deadly fire in New York. 19 people, including 9 children, perished when flames tore through an apartment building. More from Michael Genovese.
Carried to safety from a burning building in the Bronx.
Oh my God.
New York firefighters arrived within 3 minutes, smashing windows to save residents.
I was coming down the stairs and saw a body sitting on the floor.
It's pitch black in my house in the daytime. The fire, they was putting out the fire, and all you can see is just black smoke in front of my windows, black smoke.
Adults and children taken to hospital for smoke inhalation, alive, unlike so many of their neighbours.
9 of them are children, are babies that we lost, and we're all feeling this.
Investigators believe the blaze started in an apartment bedroom when an electric heater malfunctioned. The unit's door left wide open, filling 19 stories with smoke.
Members found victims on every floor in stairwells, and we're taking them out in cardiac and respiratory arrest.
It's New York's deadliest fire in 3 decades, and the death toll could climb. It's the second disaster in a week in the US. 12 people died in a house fire in Philadelphia on Thursday, which may have been started by a child playing with a lighter under a Christmas tree. In the United States, Michael Genovese, 9 News.
A happy ending for a baby handed to a soldier over an airport wall in the chaos of the American evacuation of Afghanistan. The boy has been found and given to relatives in Kabul. He was just 2 months old when he went missing on August the 19th as thousands of people rushed to leave the country. His parents and siblings are now in the United States, and it's hoped they'll soon be reunited with their son. An Omicron outbreak has forced a mass testing blitz in China, where the city of Tianjin, an hour from Beijing, is aiming to test its 14 million residents within the next 48 hours. Britain, meanwhile, is set to announce plans for living with COVID within weeks. It could include axing free rapid tests and reducing self-isolation from 7 days to 5. And a new strain has been discovered in Cyprus. Scientists say it has similarities with both Omicron and Delta, but that it's still too early to assess its impact. Australia has won big at the Golden Globes despite no red carpet, no show and no stars. Nicole Kidman was awarded Best Actress in a Drama for playing Lucille Ball in Being the Ricardos. Sarah Snook collected Best Supporting Actress for Succession, and Cody Smith-McPhee Best Supporting Actor for his role in The Power of the Dog. The ceremony was held behind closed doors due to a Hollywood boycott. When 80 ostriches broke out of a farm in southern China, they were really on the run, hot-footing it through the nearby town to the disbelief of locals. The big birds eventually found some open ground and settled down. Most of them have now been recaptured. A former US Army Chinook helicopter will be adding firepower to our fleet this bushfire season. As Alan Raskell discovered, it's one of dozens of aircraft complementing Victoria's hard-working crews on the ground.
An ex-US military machine set to fight a new war. A repurposed Chinook helicopter enlisted to battle fires down under.
What are its capabilities?
Well, it's a super heavy firebombing helicopter. It has an internal tank, could hold about 11,500 litres to drop and suppress fire.
They are formidable. This chopper having arrived by boat after being pressed into service in California during its fire season. Onboard computer systems help specially trained crews attack fire lines with breathtaking precision. Another weapon in the arsenal, this Dash 8 Q400 tanker from Canada that requires less room for takeoff and landing, a big advantage at regional airstrips.
We're looking at perhaps about 6 different airports that we can operate out of going forward.
The aircraft, part of a fleet being used this bushfire season.
So we've got a really strong fleet, 50 and another 100 we can call on when needed.
On order, an air crane will join the team, but has apparently been delayed leaving the US.
We have the available fleet at the available time. The orders are made early to allow for these delays.
Air support adding to efforts by crews on the ground. So with firepower like this at hand, it's hoped bushfires won't get out of hand.
This makes it worth going to work, knowing that we're helping people and their livelihoods.
Alan Raskell, 9 News.
Madeline Slattery's along now with all the weather details. Summer made quite a comeback today, Maddie.
It sure did, Pete. After a pretty low-key weekend, today was sunny and warm for everyone returning to work, and the city only just hit its peak before 6, reaching 31.4. Many places had a suitably foggy start for a Monday morning. This shot here taken at the Yarra Valley. And while most of the state was dry and settled today, we do have another round of humid and stormy weather on the way. Thunderstorms have started sparking up along the Murray. They'll become more widespread later tonight. And the Bureau has released this 24-hour forecast with severe storms most likely for this area in red. And Pete, I'll have more on that and the full forecast later in the bulletin.
OK, thank you, Maddie. Full House star Bob Saget has been found dead in a Florida hotel. Next, Hollywood's tributes to the actor and comedian. New charges for the man accused of kidnapping little Cleo. A stricken pilot rescued as a speeding train barrels towards them. And the Box Hill grandmother, too busy to celebrate winning $1 million. The man accused of kidnapping Cleo Smith is tonight facing a new charge of assaulting a public officer. Terence Kelly will appear in court in Carnarvon in 2 weeks. police won't reveal the circumstances surrounding the allegations. The 36-year-old has been in Perth's Casuarina prison since his arrest in November, 18 days after he allegedly snatched the 4-year-old from her family's remote campsite. A man's been charged in relation to the deaths of 2 people at Laharam near Horsham last month. The women were killed after 2 cars crashed on December the 27th, just after 10 a.m. A 30-year-old man has been charged with dangerous driving and other offences. He'll front court on Thursday. Mystery surrounds the sudden death of American comedian Bob Saget, best known for starring in the sitcom Full House. As Mike Dalton reports, he was found unresponsive in a Florida hotel room.
It was the role that anointed him as America's dad. Comedian Bob Saget would be gifted the part of widower Danny Tanner in 80s sitcom Full House after nervous producers felt first-choice John Posey wasn't daddish enough.
Dad, do I have to share my room with her?
Honey, it's going to be just like having a slumber party.
It came as a surprise to Saget, who at the time was starting in stand-up.
Because I want to have a kid, I really do. Right now I'm in no position to have a kid because I'm standing up and I'm alone.
My stand-up was always kind of wicked. So when I started doing Full House, it was a character. I was acting.
It was one of the most syndicated sitcoms of all time. Saget relishing in corrupting his good guy image on later series, such as Entourage.
Hey, welcome to the neighborhood.
Hey, Bob Saget.
There he is. Who do you think's more recognizable, you or me? Seriously.
Saget would simultaneously become the king of homemade slapstick as the host of America's Funniest Home Videos. But after a series of short-lived roles in the 2000s and a Full House reunion, Saget returned to live comedy and was in Florida on tour, only yesterday tweeting his excitement about being back on the road.
I don't talk politics, I don't talk religion, I just want to make people laugh, you know?
Saget was found unresponsive in an Orlando hotel room. The cause of death yet to be determined, police saying there are no suspicious signs. The door that was always open at the Tanner home now closes on the life of America's dad. Mike Dalton, 9 News.
Fire has ripped through a Glen Iris house, destroying the property. Firefighters arrived at the Creswick Street address just after 11 last night. Neighbours say squatters frequently visited the home.
We've been dealing with this house for nearly 5 years. It's been full of squatters who come and go.
Fortunately, no one was inside when the blaze erupted. Police have established a crime scene and an investigation is underway. 164 people, including a 4-year-old girl, have been killed in Kazakhstan during a week of anti-government riots. Officials say they've now regained control after the president issued shoot-to-kill orders to end the unrest. Russia has also sent in troops to the Central Asian nation to assist the government. More than 5,000 demonstrators have been arrested. 2 people on a ski lift in North Carolina have been injured after they were hit with a geyser of freezing water. A skier had clipped the top of a high-pressure hydrant. The resulting explosion caused a woman to fall 10 metres onto the hard-packed snow, suffering neck and chest injuries. Several other couples were saturated and had to be treated for hypothermia. A pilot in California has been saved in the nick of time after his plane crashed on a train line in California. He was pulled from the wreck seconds before a locomotive smashed through the light aircraft. He's been moved to a trauma centre. No others on the ground were injured. And Hollywood hotshot Leonardo DiCaprio has notched up another career honour with an endangered tree in Africa named after him. It comes from the Ebo forest in Cameroon, which he's championed in his ongoing attempts to save the area from logging. Major stocks were mixed today, leaving the share market flat, but the Australian dollar is pushing higher. Business reporter Chris Kohler.
A sluggish start to the week for shares, flat today, but weighed down by the likes of CSL, Wesfarmers and Coles. Mining and oil companies were pulling the other way. They were up following commodity price strength. And AGL Energy was one of the top performing stocks. Its share price halved last year, but investors today decided to pile back in. Finally, IT continues to limp into the new year. Tech stocks on Wall Street and here were sharply lower again today. And the Australian dollar ticked higher. It was buying 72 US cents, 63 euro cents and almost 53 British pence.
A Box Hill North woman's become an instant millionaire after pocketing the top prize from Saturday's Tats Lotto. She needed a moment to settle down, thinking the call was an elaborate joke. She said she had too busy a day to celebrate the win, but added the money would be spent on her kids' education and maybe a road trip around Australia. Specialist police and the bomb robot called in after explosives were found in a Footscray home. The details next. How Australians are pouring billions into paying off their mortgages faster. And Sam Kekovich goes on the lam with a whack at Fortress Australia. The bomb squad was sent to Footscray this morning after uncovering explosives while executing a warrant. It was searching the property at 9 o'clock when the discovery was made. A man's been arrested, but police say they're still investigating. Australians are paying off their mortgages at a rate not seen in decades. Chris Kohler tells us households have spent almost $50 billion reducing debt since the pandemic began.
For houses like these, Australians owe big money, but new data shows during COVID, mortgages have actually been shrinking. Households are now an average of 4 years ahead on their repayments, the biggest buffer ever.
These are record-breaking statistics. They go back as far as the APRA record books will take them.
Australians have squirreled $220 billion into their mortgage offset accounts, and the government hopes that they'll start spending it.
That $220 billion can be used as some really important firepower to help fuel the economy.
So, where's the money? Well, most mortgages now have what's called an offset. Here's how it works. Savings are put into the offset, shrinking the effective size of the home loan. Let's say you have a $500,000 mortgage and $50,000 in the offset. The mortgage is treated as $450,000. And during the pandemic, the size of those offset accounts rose on average from $77,000 to almost $100,000.
They've used this time to build up a buffer, and we're hopeful that this provides a really strong foundation to support the Australian economic recovery.
So in many ways, the pandemic has left mortgage holders better than it found them. But what's coming next is higher interest rates. The good news is Australians are clearly already preparing themselves.
When rates do rise, their loan size will be smaller, and that will help soften the blow.
Chris Kohler, 9 News.
Lambassador Sam Kekovich has taken aim at state premiers in his annual plug for Aussies to put some lamb on the barbie on January 26. He took a tongue-in-cheek hit at border policies, which left thousands unable to get home throughout the pandemic.
Just got to get all of Australia on board somehow.
Well, at least 80% of them.
I know a guy.
A national lamb rollout? About bloody time.
The former AFL footballer used the ad to poke fun at Western Australia's hard border and suggested lamb is the antidote to put Fortress Australia back on the international map. So there. Clint's next with sport.
Hi Pete, thanks so much. After the break in sport, a change of direction for Ash. Here's Braden Ingram.
Clint, the world #1, did everything she needed to in Adelaide, and so now it's next stop Melbourne Park. The details after the break.
Thanks, Braden. We'll see you soon. Plus, the AFL superstar with a surprising new look. And a record tumbles as Cam wins big. While much of the attention has centred around Novak Djokovic's court fight, Ash Barty has decided to head straight to Melbourne. Braden Ingram joins me live. Braden, she must be feeling pretty good about herself.
Well, Clint, she's on top of her game and arguably in the best shape ever heading into an Australian Open campaign. Now, she was due to play in Sydney this week as her final tune-up event, but given the fact she was really comprehensive and clinical over in Adelaide, winning that title yesterday, she's decided to head straight to Melbourne Park to complete her preparation on the practice courts. Now, while Ash Barty is primed, Nick Kyrgios is anything but. He was forced to withdraw from the Melbourne Somerset here last week with a respiratory illness. He was then due to play in Sydney tonight. He is again withdrawn, meaning he won't have played any tennis in the past 4 months and certainly putting a question mark over his Australian Open entry. Now, one man there's no question mark is Rafael Nadal. He did not play for much of the back half of last year due to a foot niggle and also COVID, but he was right back roaring into form last night, winning that Somerset title quite comprehensively, and he says as he chases that 21st Grand Slam title, there's still plenty of work to be done and he's still not at his best tennis.
My practices have been much better than my level of tennis on the competition, something that is completely normal today. But after a while without being on the tour, but that's in some way that's very positive now.
Of course, the biggest news of the day is Novak Djokovic winning his federal court case and being released from detention. It paves the way for him to play here at the Australian Open next week. And it hasn't been out of the realm of possibilities for players to come and practice late at night here at these facilities. So, Clint, you'd think he'd either get along here late tonight or even at the absolute latest tomorrow. He'll be itching to get on court given he hasn't trained for around a week.
Sure will. Braden Ingram reporting live. Thank you. Still on the tennis, and Aussie Daria Saville will take a limited preparation into Melbourne Park after her straight sets loss at the WTA event in Adelaide. On the comeback trail from a serious Achilles injury, Dasher at least showed some fight.
Brilliant.
Meanwhile, a breakout moment for little-known Sydney sider Alexander Vukic, the world number 160, defeating 6th seed Alexander Bublik.
Game, set a match, Vukic. And he brings it up with an ace for the biggest win of his career for Alex Vukic.
And on Sydney Harbour today, Team Canada lapped up the spoils of their victory over Spain in the final of the ATP Cup. Marcus Harris is again fighting for his spot in Australia's Test team. Captain Pat Cummins has backed Usman Khawaja to keep his place for the Ashes finale in Hobart, leaving Harris as the man most likely to make way for the returning Travis Head. The latest from Luke Duffsey.
David Warner willing to put the hard yards in on and off the field, packing the car as his family goes home and he heads to Hobart. Pat Cummins says he won't take any baggage into the final test, adamant he didn't declare too late at the SCG, allowing England to escape with a draw.
I thought if they batted really well, 350 is pretty achievable out there. I was able to make quite a few calls, some came off, some didn't. But it was good fun.
The biggest call facing Australian selectors now is how the batting order looks. Travis Head has recovered from COVID, but his replacement Usman Khawaja scored back-to-back centuries.
If someone comes out and hits twin hundreds, it's pretty hard to go past them for the week after, I think.
That leaves the constantly under pressure Marcus Harris as the man in the firing line.
There's going to be some tough decisions. Those conversations haven't been had.
In another tale of woe from a torrid tour, England's team bus set off for Sydney Airport today, only to be turned back around after staff shortages delayed their flight. Jos Buttler will return to the UK early after breaking a finger. The tourists battered and bruised, but buoyed after yesterday's gritty showing.
To still find a way to get a draw from where we were shows the amount of character and desire and pride that the guys feel when they pull on an England shirt.
Luke Duffsey, 9 News.
Golfer Cameron Smith is celebrating after claiming a wire-to-wire victory at the Tournament of Champions in Hawaii. At 34 under par, the Aussie carted a new tournament record, finishing one shot clear of world number 1 Jon Rahm. Having played faultless golf for the best part of 4 days, Smith had this putt on 18 to seal it.
And there it is. Cam Smith is the first PGA Tour winner in 2022.
I was just trying to hit one shot at a time. I know that sounds cliche. We spoke about it earlier in the day. We wanted to get to 35 under. We missed it by one. So in that sense, disappointing, but happy to come away with the W.
And that right there is Smith's second victory on the PGA Tour, and he earns more than $2 million. The AFL is confronting its latest COVID challenge with a growing number of players testing positive. As the clubs today return to training, Bombers skipper Dyson Heppel admits around 20 players and staff are currently isolating at Essendon alone. Ed Woolley reports.
Such is the current landscape. It was a heavily depleted return to training across the competition. This now a familiar story.
What did you get up to over the Christmas break?
Did 10 days ISO with COVID.
The virus sweeping through the league's playing ranks.
I've managed to duck and weave a couple at the moment and try not to get it, but we're still, the lay of the land at the moment, and you just cop it, and guys have handled it really well.
Most clubs, including Premiers Melbourne, have at least 10 players currently isolating. At Essendon, Dyson Heppel admits that number is more like 20.
By all reports so far, guys have been in reasonably healthy, and I guess they're getting over it within a couple of days and then serving their period.
After personal issues and then a calf problem pre-Christmas, Anthony McDonald-Tipungwuti remains on light duties.
We're supporting him as much as we possibly can to get him in good nick, and can't wait to play with him again soon.
Michael Hurley has made inroads in his comeback from a hip infection, but any return is unlikely by round 1.
Probably a bit too soon, in the way he's progressing, but there's no real time frame on it, honestly. He's not putting any cap on himself on when he can return.
A welcome sight at Punt Road, meanwhile, as Dustin Martin hit the track. Now 3 weeks since the death of his father Shane, the Tigers star appeared in good spirits under those difficult circumstances, his teammates rallying around him. And out west, Nat Fyfe has returned almost unrecognisable. The Dockers skipper ditching his trademark locks for the short back and sides, complete with goatee. And a really deflating postscript to the opening round of the AFLW season, with confirmation today that 2 of the game's biggest stars have suffered ACL injuries. Collingwood co-captain Bree Davey, as well as Western Bulldogs Izzy Huntington, will now both undergo surgery, ruling them out for the next 12 months. So not the start to that season that anybody was hoping for, Clint.
Very sad news. Thanks, Ayrton. Finally in sport tonight, some heartwarming scenes in the NBA as Golden State welcome back Klay Thompson. Struck down by an ACL tear and Achilles injury, it had been 941 days since his last outing.
Number 11, Klay Thompson!
And it certainly didn't take long for the star of the show to make an impact.
And Klay down the lane! I think he's healthy.
Thompson finishing with 17 points in the 96-82 win over the Cavs. And before I go, some breaking tennis news. Hasn't been dramatic enough today, of course. Nick Kyrgios, it's now been confirmed, breaking news that he has tested positive to COVID. So his Australian Open pretty much in doubt now, Pete.
I'd say so. Thank you very much, Clint. Well, Maddie's back with a look at the weather now. It's staying warm for a while, Maddie.
It sure is, Pete, and it's not just daytime temperatures. Our minimums are going to be well above average for the next week, so some pretty humid nights ahead. I'll have those details and the 7-day forecast next. Hello again. It was a much warmer day around Melbourne. The city only dipped to 15 overnight before peaking at 31.4 around an hour ago. Maximums around town ranged quite a bit, from 24 degrees at Rosebud to 35 at Epping. Most maximums had a 3 in front statewide. However, southerly winds kept it a little cooler along the coast. In the north, Mildura climbed above 40 for the first time this summer. And while it has been mostly dry so far today, storms have started to spark up along the Murray, with more forecast later tonight. Further north, Tropical Cyclone Tiffany made landfall over far north Queensland today. It strengthened to a Category 2 system, generating winds of around 130 kilometres an hour near its core. It's expected to move west across Cape York Peninsula tonight, and heavy rain is forecast over a broad area of the top end, with isolated totals of more than 350 millimetres possible over the coming days. For us, a set of troughs are set to funnel in moisture from the east, so we've got another period of humid, stormy weather coming up. Severe storms are expected to spark up overnight tonight and continue early tomorrow morning before contracting north during the day. Heavy rain, damaging winds and large hail are all possible. For this first round, severe storms are most likely to hit this area in red during the early hours of tomorrow morning. Then if we jump ahead to Thursday, potentially severe storms are expected to return, and there will be a lot of moisture in the atmosphere with this tropical air mass, so storms could bring some big rainfall totals. There is the potential for daily falls of more than 50 millimetres over parts of the state as that system finally moves east before the weekend. But first, thunderstorms are expected in Western Victoria later tonight before extending statewide during the early hours. They'll contract pretty quickly to the north. Severe storms could deliver 40 millimetres of rain to Swan Hill. 15 is forecast for Horsham, as well as through the northeast and far northeast. Showers will clear out from the south in the morning, and it'll be another warm one. Minimums will range from 14 at Ballarat to 25 at Mildura, and maximums will mostly be in the low to mid 20s in the south, warming up to the 30s in the north. Here in Melbourne, showers will arrive in the early morning, a chance of a thunderstorm. Yarra Glen could get up to 5 millimetres, a bit less elsewhere, then clearing for a sunny afternoon with maximums between 26 and 30 degrees. Melbourne will stay quite warm, dipping to 19. Then tomorrow the city should reach 29 with the chance of a morning shower. Then the run of 29-degree days continues. Wednesday will be dry, but on Thursday we can expect up to 25 millimetres and the chance of a thunderstorm. Showers will continue on Friday, 26 degrees, then cooling down on Saturday, 23, Sunday, 24 and 22 next Monday. So a warm night tonight with a low of 19 degrees, then possible morning shower. We can look forward to a sunny afternoon and a top of 29 degrees. And I think it's all sunny because you're back, Pete.
Oh, cut it out. But thank you. It's good to be back. Thanks, Maddie. And Melbourne, that's what's news this Monday. Layla's next with a current affair. Enjoy your evening and good night.